The volcanic planet of Gustav-IV loomed large and menacing as the transport descended through the thick, ash-laden atmosphere. The surface, a tapestry of scorched earth and rivers of molten magma, radiated a glow that seemed almost sinister against the darkening sky. Tate, the leader of the 50-person Marine Scout unit, stared out of the viewport, his eyes reflecting the fiery landscape below. "Looks like hell itself," muttered Jensen, one of Tate's closest squad mates, as he strapped on his gear. "It might as well be," Tate replied, turning away from the window. "But it's our hell to tame today, boys and girls." The cabin was filled with the soft clinking of armor and the low murmur of the Marines preparing themselves. Despite their routine bravado, there was an undercurrent of tension. Each of them knew the gravity of their mission. "Listen up," Tate called out, his voice cutting through the din. The chatter subsided as all eyes turned to him. "This isn't just another drill. The complex we're about to enter is critical to the Confederation's resource needs. And yes, it's crawling with hostiles who would rather see it destroyed than in our hands." He paced slowly in front of his unit, his gaze meeting theirs, ensuring his words were hitting home. "We are the first response. The tip of the spear. It's on us to secure that facility and ensure that the rebels and the Richter don't get a chance to dig in. I need you sharp, focused, and watching each other's backs." As the transport touched down with a jolt that ran through the hull, the side doors opened, releasing a wave of heat into the cabin. The air smelled of sulfur and burnt metal, a stark reminder of the planet's hostility. "Move out." Tate's command was swift, as he led the charge out of the transport and onto the rugged terrain of Gustav-IV. The ground beneath their boots was uneven, the heat emanating from the cracks in the scorched earth. The mining complex, a structure built on and around the magma rivers, stood in the distance, its metal surfaces intermittently reflecting the eerie glow of the lava. It looked like a fortress, imposing and impenetrable. As they approached, the sound of the complex's automated systems filled the air, a constant mechanical hum that suggested life in the midst of desolation. "Keep your eyes peeled," Tate instructed, his voice barely above a whisper, as they neared the entrance. Automated defenses might still be operational. "We go in smart, we go in quiet." They breached the perimeter, the heat inside almost as oppressive as outside. The hallways were dimly lit, the only light coming from the emergency strips on the walls. The silence was unnerving, the occasional hiss of steam from the pipes, adding to the complex's haunted ambience. Suddenly, a shadow flitted across the corridor ahead. "Contact," hissed Larson, another Marine, raising her rifle. Tate signaled for the team to hold, his eyes scanning the darkness. "Rules of engagement: do not fire unless fired upon. But keep your guard up. We're not alone here." As they moved deeper into the bowels of the complex, every corner held potential danger, every sound a possible threat. The reality of their mission was ever present: a labyrinthine fortress, an unknown number of enemies, and a high-stakes objective. "We're not just fighting for resources," Tate murmured to his team as they paused at a junction, the map on his device glowing softly in his hand. "We're fighting to keep the Confederation strong. Let's make sure we all get out to tell the tale." The words were meant to bolster, but Tate knew the truth: the complex was a powder keg, and they were in the heart of it. As they prepared to delve further into the mining facility, the mix of fear and resolve among the team was palpable. Each step forward was a step into the unknown, but Tate led them with the certainty of a leader who would see his mission through, no matter the cost. The interior of the mining complex was a stark contrast to the fiery exterior. Inside, the walls were lined with heat-resistant alloys, twisted and warped from years of exposure to volcanic activity. Tate led his unit through the labyrinthine corridors, their boots echoing softly on the metal floors, each step measured and cautious. As they delved deeper, the remnants of the complex's once thriving operation became evident. Automated systems, designed to withstand the harsh environment, occasionally whirred to life, their sudden activation casting moving shadows that danced across the walls. The noises were jarring in the oppressive silence, making the Marines tense at each unexpected sound. "Keep tight and watch the corners," Tate whispered, his voice barely audible over the hum of machinery. His eyes scanned every shadow, every flicker of movement that might indicate they were not alone. The team came upon a sector that seemed to have been abandoned in haste. Makeshift barricades made from overturned tables and scrap metal blocked some of the passageways. Guarded supplies, cans of food, personal belongings, and even a child's doll were strewn across the ground, painting a picture of a sudden evacuation. Sergeant Lin, Tate's second in command, pointed towards a small personal item on the ground, a photo partially covered in dust. "Looks like they didn't plan on being gone long," she remarked, her voice tinged with sympathy. Tate nodded, his expression grim. "They were scared," he murmured, picking up the photo. It showed a group of miners smiling, unaware of the chaos their future held. He placed the photo back on the ground, a silent homage to those affected. Pushing forward, they reached what appeared to have been a living area, now deserted and silent. Beds were left unmade, and a hologram projector was paused mid-broadcast, the frozen image of a news anchor staring blankly into the room. "It's like they vanished into thin air," muttered Jensen, his rifle scanning the room. "Or they knew they had to leave," Fast Tate replied, his mind racing through various scenarios. The presence of personal items suggested a rapid departure, likely due to the rebel threat, or perhaps something even more immediate. As they moved through the living quarters, Tate's tactical display beeped softly, alerting him to thermal anomalies ahead, potential signs of life. He signaled for the unit to halt, examining the data streaming in. "Those got potential heat signatures up ahead. Could be our rebel friends, or just the machines playing tricks," Tate said, analyzing the patterns. "Either way, we proceed with caution. Stack up, and let's move," he commanded, his voice low but firm. They advanced towards the source of the heat signatures, utilizing the complex's layout to their advantage. Tate led them through lesser-known service corridors and maintenance shafts, avoiding the main pathways that were likely monitored or trapped. As they approached a critical junction near the facility's power core, the air grew noticeably warmer, the hum of the complex louder. Tate felt a trickle of sweat run down his spine, though whether from the heat or the tension, he couldn't tell. Suddenly, the corridor ahead lit up as several automated defense turrets activated, their sensors detecting the squad's movement. "Contact front," shouted Lin, as the unit instinctively dropped to the ground, weapons raised. "We'll disable them." Now Tate barked, as their tech specialist quickly interfaced with a nearby control panel. Seconds felt like hours as the specialist worked feverishly, the turret's guns whirring ominously. With a final keystroke, the turrets powered down, their lights dimming. Breathing a collective sigh of relief, Tate gestured for the team to move up. "Good work. Let's keep moving. We're not out of the woods yet." The eerie symphony of mechanical noises continued to echo through the complex, a reminder of the ghostly presence of its former inhabitants. As Tate and his Marines ventured deeper, each step took them further into the heart of a place caught between its industrious past and its war-torn present. The deeper reaches of the mining complex, with its heavy machinery and critical infrastructure, presented an industrial maze. Here the ceilings soared high, supported by massive steel beams, and the air thrummed with the latent power of dormant generators. Tate led his unit cautiously, every sense attuned to the environment, which was fraught with both opportunity and danger. As they neared a critical junction near the complex's main power hub, a nexus of pathways connecting the entire facility, the relative quiet was violently shattered. Without warning, a barrage of gunfire erupted from multiple directions, the rebels and Richter soldiers using the complex's intricate layout to their tactical advantage. Contact. Multiple hostiles. 12 o'clock and flanking Tate shouted over the roar of gunfire, his voice calm but urgent. The ambush had caught them in a vulnerable position, exposed in the open space near the power hub. His team, though initially caught off guard, responded with disciplined precision. They quickly took cover behind the large generators and returned fire. However, the hostiles' intimate knowledge of the complex's nooks and crannies gave them the upper hand in the initial moments of the skirmish. "Harris, Reynolds, on me," Tate called out, signaling to a few of his best shooters. "Flank to the right, use the maintenance corridor. We'll give you cover." The firefight intensified, bullets ricocheting off metal surfaces with deafening clangs. Tate felt a surge of adrenaline as he exchanged fire, his focus narrowing to the task at hand. Despite the chaos, his mind was clear, calculating the quickest way to neutralize the threat. "Move, move, move," he ordered as he laid down a suppressing fire for his flanking team. Amidst the cacophony, the painful cries of his own unit members struck a hard chord. Tate saw, from the corner of his eye, several of his Marines hit, their bodies crumpling to the ground. "Medic," the call went out, urgent and strained, as the team tried to secure their wounded. The cost of the ambush was becoming painfully clear, each fallen Marine a stark reminder of the mission's stakes. Despite the losses, Tate's counter-assault strategy began to pay off. Harris and Reynolds, having maneuvered into position, opened fire from the side, catching the rebels and Richter soldiers off guard. Later, lighter armor provided little protection against the well-aimed shots of the Confederation Marines. One by one, the hostiles fell, their numbers dwindling rapidly under the coordinated assault. The gunfire eventually tapered off, leaving behind only the echoes of the battle in the cavernous space. Tate, breathing heavily, surveyed the area. The bodies of rebels and soldiers lay scattered across the ground, a grim tableau of the conflict's intensity. "Area secure," Harris reported, his voice grim as he rejoined Tate at the junction. Tate nodded, his expression hard as he looked over the remnants of the skirmish. "Secure the perimeter. Check for any more hostiles," he ordered, his mind already on the next steps. Yet his gaze lingered on the fallen members of his team, a profound sense of loss momentarily overshadowing the relief of survival. As the units set about securing the area and tending to the wounded, Tate pulled out his communicator. "Command, this is Scout Team Alpha. Ambush repelled, but we've taken casualties. Requesting immediate medevac at our position." The victory was theirs, but it was tainted with the blood of those who would not return home. As Tate coordinated the extraction of his team and the safeguarding of the complex, the weight of leadership felt heavier than ever. The battle had been won, but the war against the rebels, against the challenges of this harsh planet, was far from over. In the dimly lit underbelly of the mining complex, the air was thick with the acrid smell of gunpowder and the metallic tang of blood. Tate and his surviving Marines had regrouped in a secure section, a reinforced control room that offered a brief respite from the surrounding chaos. The walls, lined with flickering monitors and abandoned equipment, bore silent witness to the carnage that had unfolded. Tate moved among his troops, his gaze lingering on each face. The ambush had left its mark, the raw emotion, anger, fear, resolve was palpable in their eyes. He knew that his next words needed to galvanize, to transform the tide of fear into a force of collective strength. "Listen up," Tate began, his voice echoing slightly in the cramped space. The room fell silent, all attention on him. "I know we've taken hits. I know each loss feels like a blade in our guts. But I look at you all, and I see the heart of the Confederation. I see the spirit that won't be broken by rebels or by any who wish our people harm." He paused, letting his words sink in. His gaze met those of his Marines, seeing their resilience, their readiness to follow him back into the fray. "We have a duty," Tate continued, his tone intensifying. "A duty to those who've fallen, to honor their sacrifice by completing this mission. We carry their memory, their hopes, their courage, and we will carry this fight to the enemy, clear out every last one of them, and secure this complex for the Confederation." Murmurs of affirmation filled the room, the initial shock of the ambush giving way to a renewed determination. Tate could feel the shift in the atmosphere, the renewed energy that coursed through the unit. "They're not just fighting for control of a mining complex. We're fighting for our families back home, for our way of life. This complex fuels our worlds, our children's future. We let nothing stand in our way." Tate's words resonated, striking the deep-seated resolve that defined the best of the Confederation's forces. With a nod, he signaled his officers, "Prep for sweep operations. We're not leaving until we've cleared every inch of this place. Double-check your gear, sync your comms. We move out in 10. As the Marines busied themselves with preparations, Tate pulled aside his second-in-command, Sergeant Lynn. "Keep them sharp, Lynn. We can't afford any more surprises. And keep an eye out for any intel that might tell us who's really behind this mess." "Understood," Sir Lin replied, her expression steeling with resolve. The next hours saw Tate and his team methodically advancing through the complex, their movements precise and coordinated. Every corridor, every room was cleared with ruthless efficiency, the Marines working seamlessly as a unit, their morale buoyed by Tate's leadership. The deeper they went, the more signs of hasty abandonment they found: discarded weapons, unfinished meals, maps, and plans left as the rebels retreated. It was clear Tate's speech had not just rallied his troops, it had reignited their purpose, their will to fight not just for survival, but for victory. As the operation neared its end, the complex was secured, room by room, corridor by corridor. Tate stood amongst his team, their faces smeared with grime and sweat, but alight with the triumph of hard-won success. The complex was theirs again, and the threat was neutralized. "Command, this is Tate. The complex is secure. Ready for mop-up and processing of any intel gathered on site," he reported, his voice steady, the weight of command as present as ever. As they awaited extraction, Tate allowed himself a moment to reflect. The cost had been high, but the outcome was a testament to the courage and resolve of his unit. They had stood together, fought together, and would return together, their bond forged stronger in the fires of conflict. The mining complex, once a bustling hub of activity, and later a battleground, now stood eerily silent, its corridors echoing with the ghostly remnants of the conflict. As Tate's unit gathered in the main assembly area, waiting for their extraction, the weight of the day's events hung heavily in the air. The facility, crucial to the Confederation's resource chain, had been secured, but at a significant cost. Tate walked slowly among his troops, each face telling a story of exhaustion mixed with relief. The sounds of their gear clinking and the occasional cough or shuffle were the only disturbances in the otherwise oppressive silence of the complex. The volcanic planet outside the thick, reinforced windows rumbled softly, a constant reminder of the hostile environment that surrounded them. "All right, everyone, gather up," Tate called, his voice echoing slightly off the metal walls. The Marines assembled quickly, forming a loose circle around him. Tate looked at each of them, his expression somber but proud. "We did what we came here to do," Tate started, his gaze lingering on the faces of his unit. "This complex is vital, not just for its resources, but as a symbol of the Confederation's resolve. You all fought with honor today, and you've ensured the safety of countless lives back home." A murmur of affirmation went through the group, though the fatigue was evident in their postures. Tate continued, "I know the cost was high. We lost good people today, friends, comrades. We'll carry them with us, always. Their sacrifice was not in vain, and we'll make sure it's remembered." As the rumble of the approaching transport echoed through the complex, signaling their imminent departure, Tate offered a final piece of reflection. "Today tested us all. It's the kind of day that makes you question the cost of peace, the weight of command. But remember, what we do for the future of the Confederation, for our families, for peace. That's our duty." The Marines nodded, some clapping a comrade on the back, others simply absorbing Tate's words. The solidarity in the group was palpable, a strong bond forged through the fires of adversity. The transport landed with a hiss and a cloud of steam, the doors opening to reveal the crew ready to take them home. One by one, Tate's unit boarded the transport, their steps heavy but unyielding. Tate was the last to board, pausing at the top of the ramp to look back at the complex. The mining facility stood quiet and dark against the backdrop of the churning lava flows and ash-laden skies. It was a stark monument to both human ingenuity and the fragility of peace. As the transport doors closed, sealing him in with his thoughts, Tate felt the weight of command settle around him like a cloak. As the transport lifted off, ascending through the layers of ash and smoke that veiled the planet, Tate watched the complex shrink away. His thoughts lingered on the necessity of their actions, the lives they had saved by securing the facility, and the ongoing struggle to maintain order within the Confederation's vast reaches. The flight back was quiet, the unit exhausted but alive with the unspoken bonds of shared struggle. Tate's eyes remained fixed on the window until the complex was nothing but a speck on the horizon, a silent testament to the day's brutal necessity. I hope you enjoyed this story. Be sure to leave it a like on your way out. Check out one of our other videos too, and don't forget to subscribe.